Everything has to be paid for. North Korea's Lazarus Group stole an estimated $1.7 billion in cryptocurrency in 2023 alone, without firing a single bullet, deploying a single soldier, or crossing a single border. The operation cost North Korea a fraction of a percent of that amount to execute. The targets lost everything. This is the economics of cyber warfare, a domain in which the cost ratio between attacking and defending is the most asymmetric in the history of conflict. A cyber attack on a bank costs the attacker $10,000 to $100,000 to plan and execute. The bank's response, forensic investigation, system replacement, regulatory compliance, and reputational recovery, costs $50 million to $200 million. This episode examines how cyber operations function as the cheapest and most scalable form of economic warfare ever developed, why the costs fall almost entirely on the defender, and why the cyber war tax is becoming one of the largest hidden expenditures in modern conflict economics. No bullets, no borders, billions lost. The asymmetry that makes cyber war rational. Traditional warfare operates on a roughly symmetrical cost model. A missile costs $3 million. Defending against a missile costs $3 million to $10 million. The attacker and defender pay comparable amounts per engagement. Cyber warfare inverts this entirely. The RAND Corporation's analysis of cyber attack economics identifies the attacker-to-defender cost ratio in cyber operations at approximately 1:100 to 1:1,000. A state-sponsored cyber operation targeting financial infrastructure costs between $50,000 and $500,000 to plan and execute, covering personnel, tools, and operational security. The defender's response, incident response, system remediation, forensic analysis, legal proceedings, and regulatory penalties cost between $50 million and $500 million per major incident. This ratio makes cyber warfare extraordinarily attractive to states operating under resource constraints. North Korea's annual GDP runs at approximately $18 billion to $25 billion. Its cyber theft operations generated an estimated $1.7 billion in stolen cryptocurrency in 2023, according to Chainalysis blockchain analysis data. That single category of cybercrime represents 7% to 10% of the country's entire GDP, generated at minimal operational cost, with near zero risk of military retaliation. They said cyber threats could be managed through conventional cybersecurity investment and international cooperation. They got a threat landscape in which state-sponsored attackers operate at cost ratios that make defense permanently more expensive than offense, and in which stolen funds flow directly into military and weapons programs. The critical infrastructure targeting. Cyber operations do not only target financial systems, they target the same infrastructure that physical warfare destroys: power grids, water treatment, transportation networks, and communication systems, but at a fraction of the cost and with significantly less attribution risk. Iran's cyber operations against industrial control systems in the Middle East and beyond have been documented by multiple intelligence agencies and private security firms. The Triton malware framework, attributed to Iranian state actors by Dragos and FireEye, was designed to manipulate safety instrumentation systems in petrochemical facilities, systems that, if compromised, could trigger explosions or environmental disasters. The attack was detected before it caused physical damage, but the detection cost its target an estimated $50 million to $100 million in forensic investigation, system replacement, and operational disruption. Russia's cyber operations against Ukrainian energy infrastructure in 2015 and 2016, documented by CISA and multiple cybersecurity firms, successfully disrupted power delivery to portions of Kyiv. The operations targeted industrial control systems at electrical substations, causing blackouts affecting hundreds of thousands of residents. The attack cost a fraction of what a physical strike on the same infrastructure would have required. The economic disruption was comparable. The World Economic Forum's Global Risks Report identifies cyber attacks on critical infrastructure as one of the top 5 economic risks globally. The IMF estimates that a successful cyber attack on a major country's financial system could cause GDP losses of 1% to 3% in a single event, equivalent to a moderate recession, triggered without a single physical weapon being deployed. The financial system assault. Banking and financial infrastructure represents the highest value target in cyber warfare and the most consequential when compromised. Financial systems operate on confidence. A single successful attack that disrupts confidence can trigger economic consequences far exceeding the direct damage. Bangladesh's central bank suffered a cyber heist in 2016 in which attackers stole $81 million through fraudulent SWIFT, Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, transfer instructions. The attack exploited weaknesses in the bank's security protocols and cost the attackers a relatively small amount to execute. Bangladesh's GDP was approximately $200 billion at the time. The theft represented 0.04% of GDP, a small percentage, but the reputational damage and the cost of remediation, legal proceedings, and system overhaul exceeded the stolen amount. They said, international financial systems were sufficiently secured against cyber intrusion through existing protocols and cooperation frameworks. They got repeated successful attacks on central banks and financial institutions across multiple countries, with total losses from state-sponsored financial cybercrime exceeding $2 billion annually, according to FBI and Interpol tracking data. The defense spending spiral. The cost asymmetry in cyber warfare creates a permanent spending spiral for defending nations. Each new attack reveals new vulnerabilities. Each new vulnerability requires investment to close. Each investment opens new attack surfaces. The cycle never ends, and the defender always pays more than the attacker. Global cybersecurity spending reached approximately $190 billion in 2023, according to Gartner Market Analysis. A significant portion of this is driven by state-sponsored threat activity, cyber operations conducted by nation-state actors as extensions of geopolitical conflict. The IISS estimates that state-sponsored cyber operations account for 30% to 40% of total global cyber threat activity by volume. For individual countries, cybersecurity budgets have grown at 10% to 15% annually over the past decade, outpacing GDP growth in most economies. The United States allocated approximately $25 billion to cybersecurity across federal agencies in 2023. The United Kingdom committed $5 billion over 5 years to cyber defense. These figures represent the cost of defending against threats that cost their originators a fraction of the amount to launch. They said, increased cybersecurity investment would close the gap between offensive and defensive capabilities and deter state-sponsored attacks. They got a persistent widening asymmetry in which defenders spend more each year, while attackers develop new methods at lower cost, and in which no amount of defensive investment eliminates the threat entirely. The North Korea model, war funded by theft. North Korea's cyber program represents the most extreme case of cyber warfare as economic strategy. The regime has weaponized cyber theft as a primary revenue source, funding its nuclear and missile programs directly from stolen digital assets. Chainalysis, the blockchain analytics firm, reported that North Korean hackers stole approximately $1.7 billion in cryptocurrency in 2023. The UN panel of experts has tracked North Korean cyber theft at cumulative totals exceeding $3 billion between 2017 and 2023. This money funds weapons development directly, converting stolen digital wealth into physical military capability at near-zero intermediary cost. The targets, cryptocurrency exchanges, DeFi platforms, and financial institutions, bear the full cost of losses, investigation, and system reconstruction. North Korea bears no cost beyond the salaries of its cyber operatives. The operation is, by any economic measure, extraordinarily efficient wealth transfer from multiple targets across multiple countries into a single regime's military budget. The insurance and liability gap. Cyber warfare creates an insurance crisis that mirrors the pattern seen in physical conflict zones, but operates at global scale. When state-sponsored actors conduct cyber operations, the question of liability becomes unanswerable. Insurance policies typically exclude acts of war, but defining what constitutes an act of war in cyberspace has no settled legal or commercial framework. Lloyd's of London issued guidance in 2023 requiring cyber insurance policies to explicitly exclude losses caused by state-sponsored attacks. The reasoning was straightforward. State-sponsored cyber operations are too large, too unpredictable, and too difficult to attribute to be priced by commercial insurers. The result is that the most damaging category of cyber threat, state-sponsored operations, is precisely the category for which no insurance coverage exists. The total value of uninsured cyber losses globally runs at an estimated $200 billion to $400 billion annually, according to Swiss Re's cyber risk modeling. A significant portion of this gap is attributable to the state-sponsored exclusion. Targets bear the full cost of state-sponsored attacks, investigation, remediation, legal proceedings, and operational disruption, with no financial safety net. The attack costs the state actor almost nothing, the target pays everything, and no insurance system exists to bridge the gap. The long account. Cyber warfare is not a future threat. It is a present economic force, one that operates continuously, invisibly, and at a cost structure that permanently favors the attacker over the defender. North Korea stole $1.7 billion in a single year at minimal cost. Iran targeted petrochemical safety systems at a fraction of what a physical attack would require. Russia disrupted Ukrainian power grids through code rather than missiles. Bangladesh lost 81 million in minutes through a fraudulent transfer instruction. The total annual economic cost of cybercrime and state-sponsored cyber operations exceeds $8 trillion globally, according to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center and Cybercrime Magazine's annual analysis. A fraction of this is attributable to conflict-related state actors. But that fraction is growing as states discover that cyber operations deliver strategic objectives at costs that physical warfare cannot match. This is not war as it has ever been understood. No armies deploy, no borders are crossed, no territory changes hands. But the money moves, billions of it, from defenders to attackers, from civilian economies to military budgets, from the present into the permanent cost structure of a conflict that has no front line and no end date. The cyber war tax is not paid once, it is paid every year. And it is paid by everyone who connects to the systems that Conflict Now targets. Subscribe to the price of conflict, because the most expensive wars are not always the ones you can see.